Over to you, Elena.
Thank you. I'd like to start by thanking all the hosts of this amazing endeavor. We have heard so many people speak about the different facets of the upshift that we're living. And I know we are coming to the end of today's program. So I am inspired to try to think a little bit on what connects all the different facets of what has been said this afternoon. We have had various proposals of how we could rethink our current reality. And at the end of the day, when I think about it, it comes down to a very powerful and simple message that we find in The Little Prince, where the fox tells the little prince that the things that are most important can only be seen through the heart. And what I'm hearing when we speak about the upshift is a shift towards a new way of seeing, a way that really harmonizes and brings coherence between the powers of the heart for expanded perception of reality and the powers of the mind to make sense of that expanded perception. So that's what I've tried to write about in my chapter on heart-mind path to unitive justice, because that is the process that I see in all the years of working with people as a healer, an educator, as a social scientist. What I really see is that on the macro as well as the micro level, we are really trying to, for the first time, I will say, find profound coherence. To me, we have not forgotten. We are evolving. It is a forward motion. In earlier stages of human communities, it was easier to feel shared reality in much smaller and much more homogeneous communities. And so our sense of justice and community and connection was limited to those realities in much smaller communities. It is really the first time in human collective history that we are vis-a-vis, face to face, with the fullness of reality and its diversity and complexity. And so there have been earlier forms of unity and earlier forms of unitive justice in smaller communities and unitive healing, which are topics that we're all speaking about and certainly things I write about as well. But those have been much more small scale. What we are evolving into now is a new challenge for humanity. And this process of unity that we have been talking about for quite a few hours now from many different angles is both powerful and also very complex. And I really appreciate the questions that were raised multiple times this evening about how do we reach the majority of people. And I think we had a wonderful example in Lynn McTaggart's presentation and her intention experiments. And what she was saying is we need a grassroots movement, a community transformation movement. And to me, that is what is happening all over the planet. People are organizing in communities. And this time, these communities, in most cases, are very diverse, not the homogeneous communities of the past, but really diverse communities in which people are awakening among themselves this power of intention through meditative practices, through prayerful practices, through educating themselves on universal spiritual principles as they are understood and as they're spoken of in various traditions. And what's happening is that they are really awakening heart-centered, expanded perception of reality. And we heard Lynn share with us some of the science behind that. The brainwave changes, the effect on the vagus nerve, These are the physiological changes that occur. But what we see is that after 10 minutes of heart-centered, expanded perception of reality through the power of intention to heal, to bring about peace, people experience transformation. What is happening here? We're living at a time when we can no longer say, first we do this and then we're going to do that. Because if we look at climate science, they're telling us in 7 years, climate crisis processes and climate change processes will become irreversible. So it's no longer a linear task. Everything is having to happen and is happening simultaneously. Simultaneously, we're learning how to heal ourselves through information. And that was really a wonderful theme that Maria opened up for us. But in a way, from the very first speakers this evening, people were talking about changing the information, changing our understanding of reality, of how things work, and therefore healing our mindsets of old and healing our patterns and healing our attitudes and healing our planet. So it is informational change. It is also change on the level of communities that are learning how to create spiritual and social coherence. And it is also a systemic change because we are now, through all these processes, having to figure out what unitive justice would look like for all of us. Because at the deepest level, people want fairness, people want justice. At the deepest level, people long for connection and for kindness. And we saw that in Lynn McTaggart's experiments. And of course, examples are everywhere. That is what everyone wants. But how do we create that systemically at the level of complexity that we're living with now, at the level of diversity? That is not simple. And so when I think about processes of unitive healing, of unitive justice, and of course, as Bob mentioned, unitive governance, all these unitive processes, they have some common elements. One common theme that stands out is that it's a process of uplifting every soul, of helping every soul recognize their innate dignity. Not a message that we've heard very much in the past, but awakening the innate dignity in people. In that process, there's also another process. Language is changing. We're learning how to use the language of universal spiritual principles that really change vibrations, change frequencies, a language that transforms, that ennobles, that is also practical and real and down to earth and connected with life and with experience, but is also a spiritual language. Another aspect of the change is that we are now developing and articulating together in our diversity a growing clarity about what is spiritual maturity as individuals, also as communities, learning to discern spiritual maturity from our less mature and more immature ways. That is a collective standard that is also emergent, and it's really a first time in collective history that is happening across the planet, across our diversity. It's never been so complex. And then connected to that, we're also learning what it means to carry out systematic education. Systematic education that educates hearts and educates minds, because consciousness is a system and consciousness shifts as a system. And so that kind of education, which for the first time now really unites what I would say are the two wings of human understanding, and that's scientific and spiritual understanding. That kind of new educational system that is integrating the scientific and the spiritual in a systemic way, moving, helping consciousness move forward, that is also a new global phenomenon. Parallel with that, again, this cannot be sequential because really we have another 7 years. Parallel with that, more and more empowered groups are speaking about the very specific changes in global structures that also have to occur, that will protect human security in the context of processes of unitive healing, movement towards unitive justice, movement towards unitive economics, unitive education. We need genuinely unitive governance, and people are working on all these levels. So when I think about the upshift that we're living, and that we're each and every one of us and many, many, many other people and thousands, and the numbers are much larger than that, that we are contributing to, this is an upshift on many levels, from learning to be moved from the inside out to transforming our planet at the macro level of how we govern the planet, of how we protect human security, of how we protect unitive processes and processes of greater justice, which for the first time now, we have to figure out what it means to be just to a whole planet of billions of people that are highly diverse, and every aspect of life on this, every life form, every aspect of life on this planet. Humanity has never had to address such level of complexity. And that is what is happening now. That is the upshift on all these levels: language, individual, interpersonal, community healing, and global healing, and really healing of how we think about a whole person: mind, heart, body, soul, soil, as was suggested today, society, all of these things at the same time. So a lot can be said here, but also a lot has been said. So I'd like to just once again close by thanking all the contributors who have each tried to illuminate an aspect of this highly complex and very unique process that we're living now. So I'd like to pause here and thank you.